Hello and welcome back. We are continuing our season where we're getting unstuck, moving forward, all of those good things that are basically get off your butt and get some stuff done, even though it's already deep into the year. But hey, we're just going to keep this forward momentum as far as we can. We are the Building Better Developers podcast, also known as Developendor. It's the reverse, but I love it. I love going with the easier words better. Our guest today will even refer to that as he has a little bit of trouble saying it, just like some others do. But tip to the wise, try to say it 5 times fast and maybe you'll get better at it. But you don't have to say my name 5 times fast or even 1 time slow. I'm going to introduce myself. I am Rob Broadhead, one of the founders of Developendor, also the founder of RB Consulting, where we are here to help you avoid mistakes. We talk about drift. We talk about not having proper ownership. We talk about not understanding your why and the problem you're solving. And if you start your journey before you know where you're going, you're going to waste a lot of time. And that is why we are here. Also, while I'm here, is to talk about good thing and bad thing. Good thing and bad thing. So good thing was we took a journey. We've been sort of hanging out for a little bit. We took a journey this last weekend and hopped in a bus. We tried the local bus system, and it worked out okay. It was different from what we were used to, we will say, but it actually turned out pretty good. Even though we did spend a little bit of time, and there were some white knuckling moments, simply things like not sure when the bus was going to show up. The bus actually just picked us up. We ended up, which was a super good thing, is they were about 2 hours late. And they said, well, so where are you going to be? And so instead of us sitting at a bus stop, the bus stop being a parking lot for a grocery store, we actually went to a bar down the street and had a couple drinks while we were waiting for the bus to pick us up. And they did. And so there's like good and bad about being not first world transit systems. But we do have first world communication systems. And so Michael can introduce himself.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Malash. I'm one of the co-founders of Developendor, Building Better Developers. I'm also the founder of Envision QA, where we help fix businesses that have broken systems and replace the guesswork with tested, dependable solutions built around your business and your processes. Good thing, bad thing. I'm actually just going to go with a quick story off of yours because it reminded me of a time when I went to Jamaica. We flew into the airport and we didn't know that the resort was on the other side of the island. So it was about a 5-hour car ride, a 4 to 5 hour car ride over there. So they stop you at a halfway point at like a restaurant bar type deal. But what's cool is in Jamaica, rum and all the different things they produce there. So not only can you like have a meal, use the facilities, but you can also go into like their gift shop convenience store and buy alcohol and take it with you on the bus. So we bought like everyone on the bus bought a whole bunch of Red Stripe. So by the time we got to the resort, we were all having such a great time. We didn't necessarily care about the first 3 hours of the trip because the last three, the ending of the trip was a lot more fun than the first part.
That does happen. Boy, we have plenty of stories like that as well. But we digress because there are even better stories ahead. We are going to return to our conversation with Alex Polikov. Apparently not the only one. So if one of you guys are out there, maybe we'll bring a second one on just to be just different this time. If any of you would love to talk development. But this Alex continues a great conversation. This was, again, like I said, we've talked to him a couple of times, had some great conversations, and I think this is just a continuation of it. As a developer, these are the kinds of things that I think we need to talk about at times. Instead of just blindly saying, okay, yep, we're going to do this, we're going to follow this process, and start questioning some of these things, the things that are the standards, and push back a little bit and say, like, where does this really help us? Especially if you're a lead or a manager running a company, an entrepreneur, is like, what what do we really get out of a lot of these processes and all of this red tape that we deal with? And yes, this is very near and dear to my heart because I would much rather get the stuff done than have a lot of documentation behind that just said what I did, how I got there. There is value in that, but we overdo it, I think, way too often because we are just very happy to be able to say we were doing stuff. And so we were busy, we were not productive. But now we're going to get very productive in our conversation with Alex, and we will pick up right where we left off. And I think that's the key is that you've got this drift that you end up focusing on the things that don't matter, and you end up with this extra crud basically that doesn't scale. And it goes back to, like you said, you can apply AI because you've simplified it down. You said, look, let's make sure that we know who owns what, who does what is what does done mean or what does started mean, and now you can move forward. So you don't have to worry about. And it's perfect when you've got like two developers. You sort of know who owns because either I own it or you own it. Somebody owns it. But then once you start growing, now you have to worry about, okay, who actually does own it? Who actually is going to be worried about it? Is it just, and if it's a team, if everybody owns it, then nobody owns it.
Yeah.
So, you've got to keep it simple like that.
Yeah, and the idea is, we weren't going to recite another Agile manifesto or follow its rules or promote its principles or whatever. I think the manifesto was great for its time, but not now. Right now, if somebody wants to describe what a real good development process looks like, here's what I say. Number one, prioritize an index-based prioritization. You need to figure out if you're going to deliver number one or number two, which one has to come first. Right? If you can only deliver one of those two, which one will come first? Give it a higher index and follow your priorities in an index fashion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Prioritize daily. You don't need grooming sessions. What for? Number two, don't start anything you can't finish. Right? So be ready that you know exactly what needs to be built before you build it. Because otherwise, if you start something you can't finish, well, it's going to stall. And if it's stalled, it's going to create too much work in progress. You'll eventually block it, and then all it's going to do is drain your time. So that's number two. Number three, know exactly where something is, meaning don't pre-assign work to people, right? A lot of people just prefer to manage that way, micromanage. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. When you're individually assigning something, there is no peer pressure. There is no timeline of delivery. You're basically just handing this off, and it's going to get to you when you get to it. That's not teamwork. That's not how you build camaraderie. That's not how you build collaboration. You'll never have visibility into all of those tasks unless you go back to all of those people individually and ask where they are. And that's a lot of work, right? So group people to focus on number one priority as a team. Decompose the work. Other things are like best practices. Make sure you decompose the work, but most engineers, they actually don't do it. I remember when I was asked to estimate something, how long is it going to take? And I would be like, I don't know. Well, you got to give me a number. I don't know how to give you the number. And I still meet these engineers that I used to be, but I've learned you have to ask differently. You have to say, well, what's the first thing you need to start with? What's the first thing you need to do? This. Okay, and after you do this, what's the second step? This. What's the next step? This. What's the next step? This. You gotta drag out how people actually decompose work and teach them, because a lot of people just don't know. They don't have that behavioral element. And then chances are, when you break it down into smaller chunks, you can actually start putting together some kind of timelines to them. Now, the next one is, after you do all that, in the end of the next 2 weeks, just cut off and talk about what you accomplished last 2 weeks. You can call it whatever you want to call it. Call it sprint review. Call it a sprint. I don't care. You can call it your 2-week status report. I don't really care. Just talk about what your team was able to achieve in the last 2 weeks, so that you can measure it against the future 2 weeks and maybe the 2 weeks before that. See if there are patterns. And then the next one is, ask one question. What could have we done better? That's your retrospective. That's it. That's your entire Agile. There's nothing else that's needed here. Prioritize work, pull one at a time, be sure you're ready to start, decompose the work so it's easy how it's progressing, assess every 2 weeks how you're doing, ask a question what we could do better, and done. That's it. The playbook is so similar, so why are we all overcomplicating it?
So if you've simplified this playbook, essentially you've turned project management into a run book. Like here's your play-by-play for what you need to do to manage the project essentially within your application. How do you get that dashboard or that visibility if it's not built in to do those sprint plannings, to do those retros? Are you still relying on the teams themselves to somehow manage that through the product, or is your product leaning towards that, okay, here are checkpoints at certain points you need to be going back and following, or just how to keep track of where things are?
So it automates a lot of the structures. Like for example, you can't start the work that you haven't decomposed. So we created like certain behavioral elements that you have to follow a certain standard before you start it. For example, you can't start if you haven't put together a timeline estimate. Well, that makes sense. I mean, why are you starting it? You haven't really prepped for it. You haven't decomposed the work, right? So how do you know it's ready? Here's another one. You can't mark something complete unless you went to the definition of done and checked all the boxes. Makes it easy to follow, common sense stuff, right? But everybody does it by hand. We've integrated the retrospective right into the sprint review. We still call it sprints because most people do. But we've integrated it right into the workflow. So people don't have to use 101 different tools to try to do that. It's all in one spot. So we just thought about combining all of these best practices in the easiest workflow, if you will. And by controlling what the user can do and limiting the possibilities, it just makes it almost wizard-based approach. Makes it easier to follow. And then
That makes sense.
the metrics are automatically derived based on how the team members are interacting with the system. We don't need anything magical here. We just need the surface.
See, and that's great. I love that about your system. But I kind of want to touch on the one thing of your system that is, I don't want to say controversial, but it is a change. You threw out the point system. You hold people accountable to an hourly metric, not a point metric. So how did you guys come up with that? And what are some of the pros and cons you've seen of going with that approach with your application?
Okay, so let's talk about the controversial topic. Any Agilists out there are just going to throw their hands up and just go, whoa, what did he just do? Okay, let's talk about this. So there are 4 types of estimations that exist in software development. There's velocity-based. This is where you estimate based on points. Right now, usually that's only suitable within the Scrum framework, but a lot of teams still do it. I'm not a proponent of that system, even though I used to love it a lot. I think we've moved past it as an industry because of the speed of development. But again, if your team is using it, nothing wrong with it. There are better ways, but we just don't do it. The system allows you to do it, so we support Scrum teams. But that's one way. The next one is capacity-based. Capacity-based estimation is basically measured in time. So if you take a look at your team and you calculate the total work days for your entire team and all of the hours, and then you multiply it by what's called the utilization ratio, which is basically usually if the workday is 8 hours, 8 hours is not going to be spent on development. So only portion of it is, the rest is overhead. So you multiply it by the utilization ratio. And then what you do is if you're planning, for example, a Scrum sprint, you would start to decompose work, estimate each of the tasks, and then you would figure out if what you broke down can be reasonably tackled in the sprint worth of time. So that's a capacity based. There is a mix. You can apply velocity and capacity at the same time. And that's the practice that I was introduced to back in 2007 or 8. Basically, what you do is you try to you pick up enough work to match the velocity of previous sprints, but you still decompose the capacity, and you measure based on velocity if the number of work items that you picked can be completed reasonably once you decompose them into hours. It's a pretty good way of tracking if you have inflation in your story points. Then there is the no estimates. Now, no estimates doesn't mean no estimates. And I argue with a lot of people in comments about this stuff, but the way no estimates work, you actually have to decompose the work up front into 1, 2, or 3 day scope of work. So by breaking it down up front, then it becomes easier to measure downstream once people pick it up. So you're still doing that decomposition. You're eliminating the estimate because you've already decomposed it into time blocks. Okay? So it doesn't mean there is no estimation. It's just front loaded. And then there is the so those are 4 different estimation types, right? The problem with all of those estimation types is that they all look at the estimates as almost guarantees, especially the time ones. So the time estimates, for example, if you ask somebody, what is it going to take you to do this? And people come back and say 4 hours, that's usually treated as a promise. You know, kind of like your mechanic, right? He bills by the hour. So if he says 4 hours, I'm going to be pretty upset if he charges me 5, right? But in software, we don't know what we don't know, right? And so the best approach is actually not to look at the time estimates as a fixed boundary, but look at them as the flexible boundary. And this is where we get into another type of estimate, which is called a time left estimate. What is time left? So imagine you're driving your car and you're meeting a friend, and the friend is freezing in the cold waiting for you to pick him up somewhere, right? And the friend gives you a call and says, hey, Michael, where are you? And Michael, you tell him, I'm in the car. I bet your friend is going to be pretty pissed, right? Why? Because, well, that doesn't tell him anything. And that's the in progress status, right? It just means you're driving. When are you going to get there? I don't know. I'm in the car. Well, yeah, I guess you're just going to have to wait for it. So it's not the type of promise you want. Well, I'm working on it, right? It just doesn't work. Let's say you ask the same question and Michael responds, I'm by Highway 253. I don't know if there's Highway 253, but I'm just saying, I'm by this exit, or I'm 20 blocks away. Your friend will be like, well, okay, that's great. A little more precision, like 20 blocks from me. That's great. Those are story points. It doesn't tell you anything. It says you're on the way, it gives you a little bit more accuracy where approximately, but doesn't tell you when it's going to be delivered. Then let's talk about time left, the real time left. Hey, Michael, where are you? And Michael responds, GPS says I'm 5 minutes away. So if you're waiting for somebody and somebody tells you I'm 5 minutes away, what are your emotions? What are you feeling that moment? I bet you're pretty satisfied. You know exactly what's happening. You feel the confidence. And that's what's called time left, time remaining. So if you pick up a work item and you estimate that it's going to take you 10 hours, there's nothing wrong in an hour after you get acquainted with it to change it to 2 if you think it's going to take you less. There's nothing wrong in increasing that number and changing it to 20 if it's going to take you more. But it's a trigger that shows you where you are. And interesting as it is, military uses it, right? What's your ETA? Right? Everybody uses what's your ETA, but in software, we prefer to stick with something fixed or weird or inaccurate or very obfuscated. You know, like, I don't understand why we have to do something that other disciplines don't use. So, for example, if I am driving from point A to point B, while I'm driving, I may hit traffic, or I may find alternate routes, or traffic that was there when I started driving could dissipate and I could get there faster. It's the same as working on a software task. I'm working on something, And all I have to do is how much time is left for me to get it done. And I can update it as many times as I want throughout the day. It's an indicator to the rest of the team where I am. And if your team understands that concept, it's like a beacon that indicates the next phase. And why is the next phase important? When you have a real team, it's not about tracking time, it's about tracking who's next. Who's next here? Am I picking up new work? Is somebody taking over to PR? Is somebody taking over to test? Is another developer taking over because I'm just a back end guy and there needs to be a front end guy on this thing, right? So it's about coordination. And the time left principle is awesome because when you're running your daily and you say, I have three hours left on this task, everybody will hear that and receive that number to mean, oh, I'm anticipating a handoff in 3 hours. I know what my plan is for the day. I will pick up this next item. So now it's a coordination trigger versus a time measurement. Because time, I don't really care. Like, that's why I don't care about statuses. Like, yeah, we talked about statuses yesterday. If you're running a system that's correct, your statuses should be updated. There's never a point to discuss status, but there's always a point to discuss what is remaining to get done on what you're working on. And when are you going to get there? What do you need? Right? So the daily is all about having your plan for the day. It's not about reviewing yesterday. Yesterday sailed, done. Can't change that. Right? Let's focus on what we have to achieve tomorrow, achieve today. And this time left principle works beautifully. I know it's far away from what others have seen it, but it does a great deal in creating camaraderie, driving positive peer pressure, and really getting bosses off your back because they know where things stand.
Well, I think this is, that's one of the, one of the most probably classic problems that we run into. And, we're running low on time ourselves here, so I don't want to get too far into it. But I think that's one of the things we're seeing, and maybe we'll come back another time and discuss this. But like that's part of what AI does is it's signal versus noise. It's like just because you can report on status, just because you can estimate this 6 different ways, does not make it valuable. Does not make you should. It goes back to what do you, and you summarize that really good. Is it's like what really matters. What matters is the handoff. What matters is wherever we're connecting a developer or a process or a team is to make sure that we can keep that as smooth as possible. Everything else is, not everything else, but a lot of the other things is just fluff. It's stuff to say, hey, it's checking a box just to say you did that, but that doesn't really do anything for you. It's just like, okay, cool. You get the endorphin rush because you got to check a box off. Awesome. All right. Who cares? We have other work to do essentially. So let's move on and keep the thing.
We've also seen in the past 20 years so many metrics being weaponized against the teams. The velocity metrics, the story point per person, and people are beginning to game the system to prove that they're delivering and all that other junk that really has no business. We're not making better teams by following this way. What we're doing is we're teaching people how to play the system, how to manipulate it, how to hide failures. And I don't know if I can support that. I've been there. I don't want the unnecessary pressure based on some subjective thing somebody wants to see. I mean, we have the points, we have the measures, lines of code produced. Now it's how many tokens you've consumed. All of this stuff, it's completely irrelevant. Let's talk about results. And this crazy rush to deliver as much as possible. Oh boy, I think we need to slow down. There is no need to go that fast. The markets are not moving that fast. You could take your time and still be successful. There's no need to kill the team. And the quality and customer experience are still the biggest market leaders, not the features that you keep adding.
And that's the thing. in a, that's a great way for us to hit this one, is that it comes down to humans. It comes down to, there's always, you can automate, you can AI, you can do all the stuff you need to do, but at the end of the day, there's a human side of this, and we have a limit to what we can scale. So we need to make sure that where we can, we offset offset the things that we can to systems, but it's really just to allow us to have more time to do the things that matter to us, which is back to your original developer idea of just leave me alone so I can go solve my problems. I can hang out my team and we can get the things done that we want to get done. If you put another bunch of other stuff on top of that, it's taking away from where you get the most value out of your developers.
Let me enjoy my job. Let me enjoy my job. That's kind of the motto, right? Like, I remember, so I mentioned that being a fireman a long time ago, and I remember we did a job and the chief came up, and after the job, we're doing like a review of the incident. And he's like, hey guys, thank you so much. You made me look good, right? And so the developers feel good when they do a good job. The managers feel good when they didn't have to do anything and things just happen, right? The leaders feel good when the goals are met and they didn't have to, suffer any heart attacks in the process. So I think sometimes we're just putting ourselves into too much unnecessary stress. In reality, we work to live, right? We don't live to work. So there's a certain balance that we need to accomplish. And when we deliver too much, we stress test the system. You could push 100 features a minute if you wanted to, but why? Why is that important? Because I've seen too many features going in too quickly, too many support cases at the same time, and everybody's feeling burnout. All you have to do is slow down and let things finish a little slower. And that's fine too, or your other option is to staff properly, right? Let's stop cutting the people when you really want to move fast. Let's be a little more diligent. But I guess, I'm preaching to the choir here. The industry is going through the rubber band emotion, right? Stretching itself and coming back together. It'll keep on happening.
I don't think that's a cycle that's going to end anytime soon. Now, you've brought up a lot of great points while you've been here. So, what are for those that are out there in the audience who would love to learn more about Project Simple or just more about you? What are the best ways for them to reach out and get a hold of you?
Well, LinkedIn, I'm pretty active on there. I do have a channel on Medium. I publish a lot of articles. I haven't published one in a while because I've been busy with some other things. And our website, Project Simple AI. So just look for Alex Polyakov, and it turns out there's a lot of people with that name. So, but you'll find my face somewhere. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to help answer questions. I really love entrepreneurship, ideation, those kinds of things. So don't mind helping if you have any kind of special needs or have any questions. So people helped me when I was in my entrepreneurship journey. So the best I could do is give back.
So we'll make sure we've got links to the show notes and things like that to make sure we direct you to the correct Alex Polyakov as opposed to, I guess, a lot of the others that are there. But maybe they need somebody to reach out to them too. Who knows? But that being said, thanks so much for your time. For those of you that are listening and watching, thank you so much for hanging out with us and investing some time with us, and hopefully investing some time making yourselves better developers as well. As always, go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time. So, bonus material. Now you've had plenty of time to allow this to stew. Is we can either have in the bonus, as I said, you can either throw a challenge out there to the audience to say, "Hey, here's something that'd be a great way to you grow and challenge." Or if there's sort of a bit of knowledge that you want to drop on everybody and say, "Hey, here's like a perfect point for you guys for everybody that's listening to take into their job and maybe make the world a better place."
Okay, you're putting me on the spot here.
I know.
It's a very difficult question. I can't quite come up on the spot with.
We warned you at the beginning of this.
Yeah, but I really didn't have time to think through the. Maybe that's a hint of me talking too much. It's like, Alex, you should have shut up, let us talk, and while you were taking notes and thinking through this stuff. So I don't know. I guess maybe I could leave a little bit of advice. I mean, we have a lot of developerpreneurs, right? I'm having a hard time pronouncing it. Developerpreneurs as
You're
the
doing great.
audience. Yeah, and I would say that, developing is great, building stuff is great, but selling and marketing is critical. The earlier you can figure out and find the right people that would use or buy what is it that you're building, the easier it will be for you to implement. Don't fall into the trap of building too much. Try to get users to use it no matter how not ready it is. That is critical and absolutely critical, because the longer you wait, you're going to be encountered with two things. Number one, people will not use what you have in the way that you've envisioned. They will not click those same buttons the same way you are. You'll find out all kinds of race conditions, and then you'll be running around circle. Number two, you want to validate the pains, because there's plenty of vitamins out there, but people will buy the painkiller, and they're really looking for painkillers. So try to find what really solves problems. And if you get nice feedback from anybody, be sure to ask them to rip it apart as much as possible. Don't just settle for, oh, they said it was great. Nobody wants to hurt your feelings. People will say the nicest, kindest things, but in reality, you really want what people don't agree with. So, for example, when Michael said, "I don't agree with your estimation," he's being really honest. It's the feedback that's crucial, and it's it's valuable. So yeah, settle for those because that will be more valuable than not.
That is an excellent piece of wisdom. I would probably add to that, just because of how what you finished with that, is it's like, also, you don't need to be all things to all people. There's going to be some people, there are going to be Michaels in the world that will never use your product, maybe because they don't like your estimation approach, and it doesn't do it the right way. But that's okay. Or like you said, it may be somebody that they've bought into a specific vendor or a specific line or a specific style that doesn't work, and it's like, okay, you do you. There's, it does go to the point of, like, you're solving a problem, you're solving it for specific people, you're not solving it for everybody. If everybody used it, great, but that's almost never going to be the case. It's going to come down to, like, even Apple, the iPod. Like, there are people that didn't want to listen to music on headphones or something like that. So it's like, that isn't for them. We don't need to waste our time with you. And we don't need to waste your time, trying to sell you something that you don't need. It is finding that, a lot of people talk about being that niche, but that niche could be actually fairly substantial. It's solving a problem, solving it in a way that enough people, and I love the painkiller part, is it's enough people have that pain that they're like, I need it resolved. I need this, yes, it'd be great if I can do all these other things, but at the end of the day, I just want to stop hurting. And so love that. You did well for being put on the spot. And thanks again. Thanks so much. Like, we've had a couple of conversations now. They've all been great. They've all left us with, like, we could probably sit here for another couple of hours and talking through the different things that we've seen and some of the problems we've solved. So, thanks for coming out and hanging out with us. From a logistic point of view, I think we're probably about a month out. I think so. Probably towards the end of May is when this will go out, something like that. We'll get your links beforehand and everything so that you can share those out.
No worries at all. And thanks for having me. This was awesome. I really enjoy hanging with you guys. So anytime you need me, just yell my name out and I'll come running.
We may do that. Like, we still have not, I don't think we've ever had I don't think we've ever had a repeat guest. You were at the top of the list. That may be somebody that is, like, maybe our first one, just to come back around. And definitely, if there's something that's a big announcement or anything like that you guys have, who knows, it could be a good opportunity for us to come back and have a conversation about whatever that announcement is. Or I'm always interested in seeing how these companies that embrace your product and how things go after a while, because everybody comes in and it's like, okay, cool, we're all on the same page, we're going to row in the same direction, and then 6 months or a year or 2 years later you get drift, and it's like, okay, well, how do we avoid that drift? How do we put everything in place so that once they say they're going in the right direction, they actually are going in the right direction? A lot of fun problems to solve.
Yeah, don't have the magic 8 ball, but I'm always happy to share what we've learned. So
that's the best. We're reaching out to people like you to get feedback. So thanks so much. And I guess, like I said, if you have any questions or anything we can help, reach out. You know how to get a hold of me, and I know how to get a hold of you. So we'll keep in touch for sure.
Awesome. Well, I hope you get some sleep now.
I will pass out very soon after this. Like, that wall hit a while back, and I'm like, all right, it's going to be.
You want to know a secret? I'll pass out after this for sure too, because I work nights.
Oh, so you just finished your day.
Well, my team is in Europe, so I end up working nights.
Well, my team's in the US and they worked nights anyways. So now it's like, I'm actually, they're all just about to start their day a little bit. I think basically they're all in the US, but they love doing nighttime. So like, if I get up, when I get up early in the morning, it's about perfect for their start
send them
time.
a note. You're not available.
That's right. I'm going to be like, hey, I'm in a meeting.
All right. Well, great seeing you guys. Thank you again.
Good seeing you again, Alex. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. All right. You too. Bye.
Talk to you later.